there's so many people that are ready to hear the gospel that I feel like in the beginning I was just trying to talk to everybody and persuade them, when there's so many people that are already ready to hear what the message that you have, or that they're already prepared and somebody else planted a seed, or something happened to them in their life recently where they're searching for the gospel.
All right. Welcome to the Best Mission Stories. Thank you for joining us today. We have a really exciting guest today from the far off land of Gilbert, Arizona. We'll introduce him in just a moment. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching the show. Grateful for all of you. And I hope that this inspires someone to do something in the realm of missionary work. That's the point of the show, is to just help you be excited about missionary work and actually enjoy some of the stories. Also, anyone out there who has a good mission story, please reach out. The directions and instructions are in the description of the show. Email us and we'll get you on the show. Thank you for that. Okay. All right. So I'd like to introduce Brandon Hatch from Gilbert, Arizona. Thanks for being on the show today. Do you mind if we go by Elder Hatch on the show, or is that too far? Is it too far gone? Too many years have passed.
It's been coming up on 20 years, but it's fine. We could do it. I'm still technically an elder.
That's true. All right. Yeah, it's very true. And I am also Elder Bozeman for the show. And just because I forgot to actually say my proper name and intro, I'm your host, Will Bozeman, for the show, but I go by Elder Bozeman on the show. So there we go. All right. So, Elder Hatch, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about first off, where you served, when you served, and then maybe a little bit about your background, getting to your mission. Yeah.
Okay. So I served, I started my mission. It was actually interesting. I got on the airplane and left on my mission on 666. So yeah, that was an interesting day. So I don't know if people might remember what they did on that day, but yeah, June 6th of 2006, I got on an airplane to go to Sao Paulo, Brazil. So I served in Ribeirão Preto. I was there from 2006 to 2008. So I grew up in Sholo, Arizona. So all of my childhood, most of my childhood, I technically was born in New Mexico, and we moved to Sholo when I was 8. I got baptized in New Mexico, and we moved to Sholo, and I had my 9th birthday in Sholo. Yeah. So I grew up in Sholo, all through school, went to school with the same group of friends basically my whole life. There's one school in Sholo. Well, there was when I was there. I think there might be some charter schools and private schools there now, but Sholo High School. I did seminary and all of that fun stuff. I never really questioned or had any doubts or anything. I always knew I was going to go on a mission. I always wanted to go on a mission. And I always wanted to go out of the country to another country. Like, had zero doubts that I was not going to go out of the country. I was almost 100% sure that I was going to be going to another country to learn another language. I didn't really know Brazil spoke Portuguese until one of my best friends got called on his mission to Brazil. And so, yeah, Brazil's kind of that South American country where it's surrounded by every other country around it that surrounds it is Spanish speaking. Yep. And it speaks Portuguese right there, smack in the middle.
So all the Spanish classes in high school only helped Paquito for Brazil, right?
they helped. They probably would have helped more if I understood the grammar better
Yes.
for Spanish because the grammar is the same. I just knew a bunch of Spanish words and it kind of messed me up a little bit. Like in the beginning of my mission, I knew a lot of phrases in Spanish. I knew some stuff, but like Portuguese, you would say, um, uh, "Can I use the bathroom?" You would say, "Puedo usar el baño?" Um, wait, I'm so messed up. It's been so long. Now I speak like a
20
Portuñol.
years are showing. 20 years are
So
showing.
I mix. So now coming back to Arizona, where it's heavily Spanish speaking, I mix up my Portuguese with Spanish all the time. So when I first got in the mission, like I would ask people, we'd go to people's house and I would ask to use the bathroom, and I would be asking people if I could take a shower because when you ask it, the phrase in Spanish is, "Can I take a shower?" So, but yeah,
And they come and bring you a towel and some soap, and
I definitely
there
got
you go. I
I
mean,
def I definitely got a few looks, and every time my companion would nudge me and be like, "No, no, 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 no," he'd correct it. Um, I
well,
think I
so
think
no, but yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
well, I think that and it was mostly in members' houses when we were going to have like lunch or something.
Yeah.
So they understood new American missionaries, and
I think they enjoy it. I think they enjoy that you're trying and that you're, and getting it wrong. It's probably just fun for them to, but and so I guess what I was going to ask too here is, there's a lot of, lots of stories. I know we're not going to be able to cover all your stories. And of course, I also understand that some people have very, very personal and spiritual experiences. Obviously, you don't have to share anything beyond what you would like to talk about. But I always like to ask if there's one event or story that in your mind just defines your mission. Like when you think about the entirety of your mission, is there like one main thing that pops out to you, and maybe talk about that?
um, trying to think here if there's one thing that defines it. I mean, I absolutely loved every minute of my mission. Like it was definitely the hardest 2 years of my life. I'm not going to lie. I actually had nightmares when I got home from my mission that I got called to go back. And every once in a while, I still have one of those dreams. Like I've had one like in the last couple of years where I got a call to go back on my mission, and I was like in my dream, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have kids, I have a wife, I have a job, like what? And in my dream, I actually went as far as to showing up to the house, and I had my companion, and then I woke up and I'm laying in bed and I'm still like, oh my gosh. And then I realized, oh, my wife's right next to me. Oh, that was a dream, thank goodness. But I loved it. Like I so the night before I was leaving on my mission, I was in my room packing. I think I stayed up all night crying and packing my bag because I was just like, I knew that my childhood was over. Like when I came home from my mission, real world starts. My friends are everything was going to be different when I got home, and it was sad, but I was also very excited. So I did not sleep at all that night, and but that was the last time I cried um, for my mission. I never once got homesick. I never felt um, like I shouldn't be there. I never questioned it while I was there. I never was scared. I never was homesick, like I said. Um, Even in the hard days, I was like, I never had any desire to come home. I wanted to extend my mission longer, but you can't do it in Brazil. You have to have a visa, and your visa expires. You have to go home. So,
True. International is
but
probably harder. Yep. Go
yeah,
ahead.
but I just loved it. Like I think my first companion kind of set the tone for my mission. My trainer, he's actually from Gilbert, so his family kind of knew my family. I didn't know him until I got on the mission, but so he kind of set the tone that we work hard, and we worked hard all the time. I remember the first fast Sunday, I thought I was going to die, literally. So it was like hot. and it was like we didn't eat, and we walked probably 10 miles that day, got back to the house, and I literally thought I was going to die. I don't think I'd ever fasted a full 24 hours while doing like a lot of walking and moving and a bunch of stuff. Like it was intense, but
Well, yeah, Fast Sunday growing up, and I remember that. Fast Sunday, I didn't do anything. We didn't go outside, didn't play. Just kind of just
yeah.
waited for dinner.
Yeah.
Just like, but
And when I
yeah,
was
yeah,
when I was younger, I had fasted. It was like, okay, the night before, after dinner, you start your fast. You fast through breakfast, you fast through lunch, and you eat dinner. But it was the full 24 hours. We would eat lunch. Right after lunch, we'd start our fast, and then we would go until lunch the next day.
and then you're just walking everywhere too. I mean, you're burning calories, and but I guess your companion was probably, he was just like, this is what we do. It's
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah. Yeah.
that is welcome to
It
the
was good.
mission, Elder Hatch. This
Yeah.
mission, you're about
No
to
joke.
you're about to walk 10 miles on an empty stomach. So
Yeah.
that's
There
cool.
was a few like eye-opening moments. Like P Day is not an actual day. It was um I think 10 o'clock is when it technically started and ended at 6. So and then we were out every day right after P Day, 6 o'clock, we were out the door and we were out working. So
So in case people are listening and don't know what P-Day is, P-Day is preparation day. I think that still is pretty normal, pretty standard in all the missions still today. But one day a week, everyone has to do regular stuff, and that regular stuff really just means like chores, work and chores
yeah,
for the
go to the
rest of the
grocery
week.
store,
Grocery store, laundry,
write
stuff like
letters,
that. Yep. So
email.
that's P-Day. All right, keep going on that. Yeah. So you didn't even get a
So
whole day for that, huh? You just got like half a day, really. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah. So and then Sunday, I was always used to Sunday being the day of rest. Yeah, not as a missionary. That was like
nope.
that was probably the hardest day that you worked like all week because going to visit everybody that said they were going to go to church that didn't. You're
Yep.
walking all over the place. Yeah, it was definitely not the day of rest.
Did you
But
cover more than one ward or branch at the same time? Like, did you cover
so
multiple units?
I don't think I was ever in an area that had more than one branch or ward. So it would be the whole city would pretty much be one ward or
Gotcha.
branch, and then so you would cover in the bigger cities. It would kind of be you would have sections of the city that would be like in the city of Ribeirão Preto itself. There was I think three, maybe five companionships in that area, but it
Gotcha.
was so the city is huge. It's if you were to think about it, it could be like geographically, it's probably only the size of Gilbert, but population wise, it's going to be a lot more. It's a lot denser, heavily
Right.
populated in the.
And
So
that's probably why you're walking everywhere, right? Everybody just lives
yeah,
really close, yeah. Well, that's
yeah,
yeah. I mean, our mission was kind of like that. We typically everybody covered multiple wards. My
yeah.
Sunday, I spent 6 hours at church on Sunday. We do two wards in a row, and then the rest of the afternoon was just doing lessons and chasing people down, like you said. So, I mean, yeah, Sunday was a busy day for us as well. But yeah, well, okay.
Well,
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
I mean, just to go back, like to define my mission, like I just had a blast. I thought it was awesome. Like I feel like I never wanted to leave. It was just amazing. Like I never questioned it, like I said, but I just had the best time. It was definitely hard work. I feel like I had a lot of good companions in the beginning that just set the tone for, obedience and hard work, and it just kind of carried on throughout my whole mission. And it was just always
you know,
hard work and fun.
I'll point out something too that some people might imagine being on a mission like it's rigid and not fun because it's rigid, But hey, if you think about it the right way, I mean, you can have a lot of fun as a missionary and just simply keep the rules and do the work, and you still have a blast. There's many occasions where it's, I'm just thinking about, I remember a couple of times where I thought I was having too much fun. I was having too much fun as a missionary, but we're still getting all this work done. All these great things are going on, but it's all like, this is just like too much fun. I'm having a great time. But, obviously there's lots of hard times too.
Yeah.
So yeah. And I have lots of stories as well, good and bad and funny and otherwise, but yeah, it's, you think back on it, it is hard to come up with one story. I often talk about I think there's some people that I felt like, I was called to this mission, and one of the reasons why I was this one particular person that I ended up meeting,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I feel that way. Most people I've talked to, they feel the same way, that there's typically.
I feel like I have one person in each area that I served in that I was like, I think this is why I was called to come into this area. Like
Okay, okay.
I feel like I have one of those in each of my areas I was in.
You want to talk? Tell us a story of one of those people. Any kind of life-changing story for them, something that they overcame or whatnot.
Well, there was so the one that always kind of stands out. There was a I was in the city of Birigui, and I think at that time I was a zone leader, and I was new to the area. I think it was might have been my first transfer there, and we had just gotten done with our weekly planning session. So that's where you basically plan for the entire week. So we would do our morning stuff the same, and then instead of going out to proselyte um, between what did we leave at 10? I can't remember if it was 10 or 9. I think it was 10. I think instead of leaving at 10 and working for 2 hours and then going to lunch, we would just plan for, I must have been 9 actually. I think it was 9. We'd go out at 9, and then instead of that, we would plan until lunchtime. And so we were having lunch that day at the Relief Society president's house. And, um, it's a fairly bigger city is Birigui. It was the area of the zone leaders, and they had a pretty nice church building. It seemed like they had a pretty good foundation for the church there. A lot of strong members, a lot of people that had been there for a long time. There's a number of missionaries that had returned there that were pretty good, and then there was a number of like youth that loved to help and go out and teach with all the missionaries. So it was a pretty good established area. As far as lunch went, we were on our way to lunch, and we were already running a little bit late. And I remember my companion was just kind of like beelining to to lunch, and so was I. I was right there, and I noticed. I always made a point that if somebody went out of their way to avoid me, I would go out of my way to go talk to them. And so there was this lady, and she
That's
saw us
cool.
walking, and we were on the same side of the road as her. And she saw us coming, and she walked to the other side of the road. And so I walked to the other side of the road and started talking to her. And my companion kind of walked ahead, and he's just kind of waiting, like, oh, really? Like, so I started talking to her, and she said that she knew who we were, because that's how I would always start the conversation and be like, hey, I'm a member, missionary from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We're here in the area. Have you ever seen us before? That's usually how I start my contacts, and either yes or no. And she said, oh, yeah, I've seen you guys many times. My sister actually goes to your church. And I said, oh, that's awesome. Cool. And I'd never met the sister before. This is, I think, my first time going to have lunch at her house. And she's like, oh, I think you're actually going to have lunch at her house right now.
Oh,
And I said, oh, wow, well, that's awesome. Have you ever been taught by the missionaries before? And she said, no, I never have. And I said, well, how about, well, where are you going right now? And I think she was going to drop something off somewhere, grab something. And she said what she was going to do. And I said, well, how about we're going to go have lunch with her right now. When you're done with your errand or whatever, stop by and we'll teach you a lesson. And she said, okay, that sounds good. And so we get to the sister's house, and um, she was talking to us, and all of a sudden I was like, oh, hey, your sister, we ran into her on the road, and she's going to come after she runs an errand, and she's going to let us teach her a lesson. And she's like, Elder, that's not nice. Don't say that. And I said, no, honestly, I ran into her in the road. She said she's going to come over. She's like, no, she didn't. There's no way she would have said that. I said, no, I swear. And I kind of described what she looked like. And she's like, she was very skeptical. Like did
Yeah.
not believe me at all. So she ended up coming. After we ate, she came over and she walked in the door, and her sister, like, you could have picked her jaw off the ground. She's like, "You're gonna let him teach you a lesson?" And she's like, "Yeah, I am." And she was just like floored. She's like, "What?" She's like, "Yeah, I feel like I should listen to him." And so we taught her a lesson, and it was probably one of the best lessons we've ever taught. Like, it was like the spirit was just so strong. Her sister was crying. She was crying. Like, it was just like crazy because her sister said she had been trying to get her to listen to the missionaries for years. I mean, she was the Relief Society president in just a little branch. And so her daughter, Gabriella, she was 8, 9. I think she might have been 9, 10 around that time. She would go to church with her aunt sometimes. And so she was familiar with the church. And so we taught them. And I think it was the first time she went to church with us. Maybe it might have been the second time. It was Fast Sunday. And
Again, Fast Sunday.
it was
Oh,
Fast
wait, I know
Sunday.
where you're going with this. Fast Sunday. Yes.
So,
Yes.
but it was Fast Sunday, and I that was always a scary thing to take a new investigator to church on a Fast Sunday.
It
But
always happens that the first Sunday that they're willing to come is Fast Sunday, and I have some thoughts about why, and I don't know the mind of the Lord, but I have a few ideas as to why it seems like that's so common that you have an investigator that you're crossing your fingers and hoping that they are excited about coming, and they come for the first time and it's Fast Sunday, and you're like, oh yes, that's right,
yeah,
this could be. Yeah, you never know who's going to get up and talk and what they're going to say, and they can end up, question marks all over their face when they're done. Like, what is all this about, But yeah, I will say one thing. We'll get right back to that in a second. Is that I hear this all the time from people that everyone else's expectations of someone being ready is oftentimes just, it truly is their own opinion. Like, they just don't know when someone's going to be ready. They don't know, right? Like, the Relief Society, you assume somebody who is a Relief Society, president and active, that they would have, inspirational guidance as to when someone in her immediate family would be interested in, hearing the gospel. You'd think that, but you just don't know that, right? And then all it takes is somebody else to listen to the Spirit and then reach out and ask, And like you said, her jaw was on the floor, and I have seen stuff like that happen before, where the expectation of everyone else in that relationship is that this person's not ready, right? But they're all thinking that because they all think that they know, right? But the Lord knows, and the Spirit guides, and the person who is not ready suddenly is saying, "Sure, I'll do lessons." Like, I've seen that many times, and I've heard that from a lot of people too. That truly is probably one of the greatest strengths of being a missionary, is that you don't know anybody. Like, and maybe that's probably why it's so good that you don't know anybody, and you go from area to area in the mission, so you don't get to know people, right? So you don't use your own judgment on when you think someone's ready to hear the gospel, because you don't know them. Right? Everybody's ready to hear the gospel when you're a missionary, because you don't know anybody.
yeah,
That was one of my favorite things to tell people, is that, they're like, Elder Bozeman, how is it that you can just go talk to everyone? And I was like, everybody that I talk to is potentially going to get baptized. And if you think of them like that, then you're not afraid to talk to them at all. They're just somebody who they don't understand yet. Go talk to them, right? You don't have to be afraid of that. It's really easy when you don't know people. It is probably harder if you think you know someone really, really well, and you think maybe you've got one chance, right?
the perfect moment.
yes, I'm gonna wait. I don't want to ask them because I don't want to scare them. I got one chance, and then they'll never, talk to me again or something. That's probably what people are thinking. Um, but then it just takes that one person on the outside of your relationship to just go and do it. I mean, I told a story in another episode once about a one of the people that I thought I was sent to my mission for, and he had discussions with multiple sets of missionaries over the last decade, before he met me and my companion. And everybody just assumed he was not going to join or that he wasn't ready, right? But if you would have asked his immediate family, his wife and kids, they would have said, "Oh, don't worry, he's already had lessons. He's not interested." Right? They'll tell you that he's not interested, right? But that's just not that doesn't work that way, right? But that's cool. I'm glad that I love your was that like one of your personal policies? If someone's trying to avoid you, then you seek them out on purpose. Is that kind of how you?
Yeah, yeah, that was kind of what, and generally it wasn't so much because I wanted to go to their house and teach them. I just wanted to be like,
Show them you're a
hey,
regular person.
we're normal. We're not, no one to be,
Yeah.
you don't need to be afraid of us, or you don't need to avoid us. Like there's no reason for that. So I would go out of my, and I changed the way I did contacts throughout the mission. In the beginning, I tried, and I would, argue with people and try and get their address so that we can go to their house and teach them. And finally, they would give it up, and then we'd go there, and they wouldn't answer the door. Or, so I kind of changed that approach, and I went to a different approach where, in the original, like in the actual contact that I made with them, I would invite them to church and be like, "Hey, we have church on Sundays, and it is over in this part of town. Have you ever seen the church building?" "Oh yeah, I think I've seen it." "So it's at 9 o'clock every Sunday. We can come to your house and we can walk with you there and introduce you to all the people. And would you think you'd ever be interested in going?" And if they said yes, then all right, we want to come by your house and teach you. Can we teach you some lessons about Christ and the restoration of the gospel? And if that kind of went well, then we'd get their address and go over there. But um, I think it might have been a unique situation with Brazil and like South America. I think there's a lot more people that are ready to hear the gospel than other places. So I feel like in the beginning part of my mission, when I just turned senior companion, and I use the term loosely, I wasted a lot of time on people that weren't interested instead of trying to find people that were interested and were already ready to hear the gospel.
No, I love that. And if I know this whole show is gonna, it's supposed to have fun stories and spiritual stories and everything, but I also like the idea that there's some really good advice here. Maybe elaborate a little bit on what you consider like what was the scenario in which you felt like you wasted time? Because the people are worth it. So obviously you're not wasting time
Yeah,
by
I don't
by
like saying, yeah, I don't like saying, it's hard to say because I don't want to say I wasted time on somebody because
right.
it like dehumanizes them. It makes it sound
Yeah.
bad. But like there's so many people that are ready to hear the gospel that I feel like in the beginning I was just trying to talk to everybody and persuade them when there's so many people that are already ready to hear what the message that you have, or that they're already prepared and somebody else planted a seed, or something happened to them in their life recently where they're searching for the gospel, and then boom, you show up. And so, like, for example, in the beginning, like it was like, "Hey, we'd like to come to your house and teach you a lesson." "Oh no, I'm actually really busy. I don't know. It's probably never going to work out." "Well, what if it did?" I don't know. Maybe no. How about another time?" "Well, let me just get your address and we can stop by if we're ever close by in the air." And it was just like finally they'd be like, "Okay, fine. Here's my address."
You're
And
you're
so
you're, for, you're forcing it, right? It's like you're
yeah,
forcing it to happen,
yeah.
and it's not. And if they are already pushing back, and you're trying to force that commitment, they probably aren't serious, right?
It's
Like
like
in
it's like
quote
if
unquote
you're
wasting time, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's like
it's
if
like
you're in, sometimes you're at Costco, you walk in and they're trying to sell you a cell phone. You're like, "Dude, I don't want your cell phone." And they're just trying to get you to get the cell phone. I'm like, okay. And then we'd show up at their house X number of days later and they wouldn't answer the door. Like,
Right.
well, when we had planned the night before, we specifically planned to go to this person's house and XYZ and all these things. So I was like, man, we could have. And so later on, I found like, I would start my approach with trying to find people that were already willing to accept. So my first time I made contact with them, it'd be an invite to go to church. If they accepted, we'd get their address and we'd go try teaching them. If they didn't say they wanted to go to church or they already had a church or something, then I would give them a little pass along card and say, hey, if you ever change your mind, call the number on this thing and we'll come by your house and we'll teach you a lesson. And
That's
so
cool.
that's kind of was my approach, and I definitely had a lot more quality lessons, I think, with that approach, because you're finding people that want to be taught. It's hard to teach somebody that doesn't want to be taught.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, that is probably yeah. Say that again exactly the same way. I want everyone to hear that again.
Well,
It's hard,
it's easier to teach people that want to be
they
taught
want to be taught.
instead of people that aren't interested or don't want to be
It's hard.
taught.
Yeah, it's hard to teach somebody who doesn't want to be taught. I mean, they just aren't. Yeah. No, there's a bit of scriptural prophecy behind that whole concept. Is you're seeking out the oh my
Elect.
gosh, it's the elect. But I'm just trying to think. I should know the
Um,
scripture. Uh, but you're seeking out those who are ready, right? You're not seeking out everyone. You're seeking out those select ones, right? And it's described as you have to find them. I think there's a scripture referencing metaphorically, right? The nooks and crannies under the rocks. You're seeking them out, right? You're finding them. And like everybody's not going to just listen to you. And again, you're only there for 2 years. I know everybody listening to this thinks 2 years is a long time, but I guarantee you, anyone that I ask on the show, how fast does 2 years go by? It's done. And all of a sudden they're talking about your plane tickets home, and you're like, well, hold on a second. Like, I just learned how to be a missionary like last week.
yeah, I just got it down.
I just got it down. And then they'll say, that's great. Go home and take all of that knowledge home and do it there. Like, it's not the same. Like, it's like being on a mission and all you do is being a missionary. And now it really does feel like that, though. The last few months of your mission, you feel like you actually know what you're doing. And
Yeah,
and I mean, I got lots of theories on stuff. You know me on this, but maybe that's why you can only stay for 2 years, because the moment you think you know what you're doing, you think you know what you're doing.
yeah,
It's time for you to go home. When
yeah,
you think you know what you're doing, and it's time for somebody who doesn't know anything at all to come in and bumble around. That's how you kind of might see it as an experienced missionary watching I don't know what the words are these days, greenies, rookies, whatever you want to call them. Literally banging their head against all the walls and posts trying to figure out how to be a missionary. And then they are still able to find those elect. Maybe that's the way it's supposed to work.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, and I found too, the reason, I think the biggest reason I decided to change my approach with the contacts was, you always plan a little bit the night before for the next day. And, I'd have a little planner book with 30 addresses that I got that day, and I couldn't remember if any of them were even good. So sometimes I'd have stars in them or notes in them, and I'm like, okay, I have a bunch of. So then at the end of the day, I had 30 addresses and couldn't remember if any of them were good. And so then I was like, you know what? Only the good ones are going in there.
yep.
So
No, that's really cool. I mean, I served stateside. I served in Spokane, Washington. So, it's either bike areas or car areas. And if you're in some of the rural areas, it's going to be a car, and you don't really walk along and find people. It's like,
yeah,
so it's everything you do has to be a little bit more deliberate because you're actually making a trip there. So in some ways it seems like it would be easier to just walk around and talk to everybody, because they're all going to be there. But just different world, different stuff, but
I
go ahead.
well, the other thing I really made a point that I'm in another country. I'm never going to see these people probably ever again. Like, I just need to be as bold as possible. Like, and what's the worst they can say is no.
Yeah.
But
I mean, And I think that actually, I mean, look, maybe if we are going into teaching some lessons here that someone can take with them on a mission, that's another one. You're there to be bold, speak up, talk to people, don't be afraid. And I guess the real conclusion there is, what exactly are you going to lose by hiding from it, right? Like, you're not going to see him again. In fact, you're going to be moving to a different area in like in like 3 months, so you really won't see him again. And
Yeah.
it's like you can be as bold as you want. And it's yeah, I think that's a good thing to think about as you're going in. But okay, all right.
Yeah.
So
Well,
um,
going back to the original story, it was Fast Sunday. We show up at church, and next thing I know, this mom and her daughter are walking up to the front to bear their testimony. And all of the members in the ward are like looking at me and my companion, and we're like,
but
oh,
your visitor's going up.
yeah.
Oh,
And me and my companion are like, oh no, what are they gonna say? Like we were kind of nervous. But when they went up there was the first time I actually heard the whole story that the mom spoke. And she said that, a couple of days before, her daughter had, expressed that she wants to go to church. And she had drawn a picture of her and her sister, her aunt and her family, and she was in the church with them, and her daughter drew that picture and her mom wasn't in it. And so she kind of questioned it, and she's like, oh, well, you don't go to church. And so she's like, you know what, I need to make a change, and I need to um, start going to church. And I think it might have been the next day, is when I ran into her in the road. And she said, she's like, I saw you, and I saw you coming, and it looked like you were probably going to talk to me. So I walked to the other side of the road because I was afraid. I didn't want to have to make this decision. And then you came and talked to me, and I was like, okay, this is the answer to the prayer. Like, I need to do this. So the sister, she was shocked because she said she had been trying to get her to even just come to church for years, and she just had zero interest. So it was really awesome. And they both got baptized. The husband kind of showed some interest, but he wasn't too interested in the beginning. But definitely the daughter and the mom, they got baptized, and they ended up moving shortly after to a different city. So I kind of lost contact with them after they left the area. Because back then there was like they didn't even have Facebook back then. It was, you know.
you're really dating yourself,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was
uh,
MySpace.
there's MySpace back then.
Yeah,
That part I do know is that, you work with someone, you baptize them, and then either you leave or they leave, and you just cross your fingers that they stay and stick to the church and stick to it. I did have, I know we're running out of time on the show for today, but I did have a pretty cool experience with that once. The story of how this family ended up getting baptized, I'll tell another time. But one of the things that happened was there was a daughter who was interested in the church, and we ended up teaching the family, and they ended up getting baptized. And they had, I think, it's 4 kids, two teenage daughters, and then 2 younger children, a girl and a boy, that were 10, 11, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yeah, 9 and 10. So the 2 older teenage daughters, they had a social life, right? They had boyfriends and things like that, and they got baptized. Well, I left the area, and it was probably like 6 months later. I was talking to someone from that area, and they said, "Oh yeah, did you ever talk to the? It was their last names were the Browns. So you ever talk to the Browns again?" And I know that seems like a generic name, like I'm just making that up to conceal the real. That's their real name. Their names are Browns. But I was actually, they said, "Hey, have you heard from the Browns lately?" Well, I haven't talked to them. You don't really ever call people that much after you leave an area, and they said, "Oh well." The 2 oldest daughters, both of their boyfriends ended up getting baptized. both of their boyfriends' families ended up getting their families in the church as well. And the majority of each of the other families ended up getting baptized. Um, to my knowledge, by the time I left the mission, I had looked back and tried to connect with people to see what was going on. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, one or both of those boyfriends ended up going on a mission as well. So like,
Awesome.
just like all of that from, that you just don't know what's going to happen, right? It spreads out. I will say that entire story actually comes from the 9-year-old daughter. The 9-year-old daughter is the one who triggered the entire chain of events.
Yeah.
And I'll tell the story in more detail another day, but she's the one that actually asked her parents if they could learn about Jesus and have missionaries come over to the house. And I literally had to go over there and ask them if that was okay. And to teach her, she was 9, so she could be a convert to the church, right? And the parents were like, sounds good. They didn't even want to hear it. They just were sitting on the other side of the room while we taught her. And I'll tell more about that story. I keep saying I'll tell about the story the other day, and then I'll keep on finishing the story. But I will finish that story another day because it's really fun. Anything embarrassing that you that you want to leave everybody with? Something that may be an embarrassing story that can be a little bit of a warning for other people, just in case. It doesn't matter. But what do you got? Anything?
Well, I was in South America for 2 years, and I pooped my pants 0 times. I almost pooped my pants many times.
So that's a
And
huge success. Is that what you're saying?
it was. I had my companion, like there was one area, I don't know if it's too much detail, but like we were in as investigator, and I was like, Elder, he was American. I was like, we gotta go now. He's like, why? I was like, we gotta go now. He's like, just use the bathroom here. I was like, no, they'll never let us come back. And in Brazil, there's no insulation either. Like they have
Oh,
like an aluminum door, and the walls are all like block, so it echoes. It's loud. We got about 100 yards away from their house, and I could not take another step,
got it.
and
Well,
I pooped on the side of the road.
no, well,
You can edit that out if you need to.
you know, I will say I have heard. Well, look, this is what the show is about. I mean, like, when nobody's going to come home from their mission and tell that story from the pulpit, but everybody needs to hear that. Like, they all need to understand that when you're going to other countries, there's a lot of real life physical things you deal with. And I've heard lots of stories. A lot of them have to do with digestion issues. But I've heard, yeah, I've heard a number of them. But it's the one thing that everybody they're going to tell you the good stories, the good stuff where oh yeah, well, we taught this person and it was magical, and or spiritual, not magical, spiritual, and they ended up joining the church and life was great, and then I completed the mission and came home, right? But what they left out was all the real life stuff that you dealt with
Yeah.
every day,
That's
and
those are the stories you share with your friends, like on the side. Like,
uh,
yeah. But I would say, but the one thing I think, like going to another country, learning another language, it was so frustrating the first 4 5 months of my mission because, like, I felt like I had so much personality that I could not use because you
interesting.
you can't express yourself the way you want to because there's a barrier with the language. So, I mean, I don't know how many lessons I was sitting in and I'm like just completely lost. And all of a sudden I fall asleep because it's hot, it's dark, it's just perfect environment. And I zoned out. I couldn't understand what was going on. And I feel like the other thing too is like when they're talking to somebody else, I was always like, okay, I understand what they're saying. Then they look at me and start talking, and all of a sudden I couldn't hear what they were saying. It was the craziest thing.
Oh.
But yeah, I feel like once you actually start to be able to speak the language, because I feel like the areas that I was in my first area, I was there for 2 transfers, and no, I think I might have been there 3 transfers. Um, but I feel like the members that were in that branch, they never really got to see Elder Hatch. So I remember when I was a zone leader, I went back and did a transfer over there, and I went and did a split with the district leader, and we went to some of the people's houses, and they're like, "Elder Hatch, you can talk," and I was like, "Yeah." So it was cool to go back and
Now you're here.
yeah.
Now you're here.
So
I never even thought about that though. That if you can't speak the language, you can't even express your personality. Like they don't even get to know who you are.
yeah, you just have
Um,
those memorized lessons that you memorize in Portuguese, and you regurgitate them, and you can kind of slowly add some words here and there, but like you have no personality outside of that.
well,
So once
well,
you get that out of the way, it's a lot more fun.
I agree, and I don't have that personal experience of having that feeling, but knowing that you can definitely overcome it. Yes, love it, love it. Elder Hatch, thank you so much for joining us
Yeah.
on the show today. Thank you for being here. Thanks for the stories, and I appreciate that you're willing to talk about some of the personal experiences you had doing the Lord's work. And I hope that anyone out there listening can take some of these stories, make use of them to better your life, better someone else's life, maybe draw some inspiration. If you haven't been on a mission and you're thinking about going, maybe some of these stories will. I hope they don't scare they don't scare you off. But I hope that you learn some of the advantages of talking to someone who's been on a mission and hearing their stories can do wonders for you when you go out. So maybe some of these will help. All of you who are listening, thank you so much for watching the show, listening to the show. If you have an amazing mission story that you'd like to share, reach out to me. We'll get you on the show. Thank you so much for listening. I'm your host, Will Bozeman, Elder Bozeman, and we'll talk to you soon. We'll see you next time. Thanks.